Leicester reached their first FA Cup semi-final for 39 years by beating Manchester United 3-1 yesterday. Micah spent most of the afternoon laughing. Brendan Rodgers' men are also on course to go one step further than last season and make it into the top four. This recruitment, Micah, is phenomenal what they've done. And just they tend to move on one key player every summer. And just have a listen to what they've done over the last 5 years or so. 2016-17, N'Golo Kante went out for 35 million. They bought in Ndidi for 17. The season after, Danny Drinkwater went out for 37 million, and they bought in Maguire for 13 and Iheanacho for 27. The year after, Mahrez went out for 67. In came Maddison for 25, Ricardo Pereira for 22, and Soyuncu for 21. 2019-20, Maguire out for 87 million. In came Tielemans for 45, Perez 33, Pratt 19, James Justin 6. And then last summer, Chilwell out for 50, Fofana in for 35, and Castagna for 24. When you break it down like that, that is a remarkable 5-6 years of transfer business.
It's some of the best I've ever seen, and some of the players, and even the ones that they've not really got right. They got Musa came in for I think 17 million, and Slimani came in for 27 million or something like that. Even the ones that they've got wrong, that it's not really big news. It's all about the positives, right? Well, they're gonna find these attractive players, and they're gonna get the odd one or two wrong, but 95% is going to be right. And this is the best recruitment I've seen for a long time in the Premier League. And like to see them all playing together, you lose Barnes and you lose Maddison, and then Perez steps up. Iheanacho, it's just a joy to see him doing so well. 25 million, when he's at Man City, you always want him to go there and express himself and do well. And he's coming to in his own. Castagna, Pereira, the list just goes on. Johnny Evans, was it 3 million quid from West Brom? It's not only about the ones that people don't know about, it's getting them coups that have got that Premier League experience and embedding everyone together, creating a great atmosphere. And you can just see, honestly, it's a joy to watch Leicester do so well. They've become my second team, Leicester now. Right. They really have. It's honestly,
Micah, what is a coop? A coop is something you put chickens in, isn't it?
So they bought all those players and hope for some chickens at the same time, haven't they?
I like my chickens, don't I?
yeah.
But
you mean coos? Coos.
I thought it was a coop. No, is that American word?
Rob Tanner from The Athletic, who covers Leicester's, waited to join us, must wonder what on earth he's walked into at the moment. Micah's first point is fair, though, isn't it? Even the ones that they've, they have had the odd dud, and it is only the odd dud. But quite frankly, when you have the success rate that they've had, they can be allowed the odd dud.
Yeah, it was the summer of 2016, which didn't go to plan, really. I mean, that was unprecedented. They were champions of England. That suddenly had all this money. They felt like they should go out and spend big. And they did spend big. They broke the club transfer record 3 times that summer. Only Papi Mendy is still at the club from that recruitment. So they learned a lesson that summer, and they reverted back to type in many ways in terms of where they were shopping for their signings. And since then, it's invariably been a great success. There has been the odd failure, but overall their recruitment's been spot on. They're shopping in a different market to the clubs they consider they're competing with now.
Oh dear.
Rory's disappeared. Rory's internet connection's gone, and just as he was coming in with the... Now he looks really surprised. Are you back, Rory?
Well, I've been able to hear you throughout. Am I back?
Oh, right. Okay. Try again.
Right, I was going to say that what impresses me with Leicester is the fact that winning the Premier League title doesn't seem to have derailed what they wanted to be in the first place. So they always saw their route to success as being signing young players, sort of allowing them to develop and progress, and then as you've detailed so expertly, selling one on and using the money to reinvest in the squad. And they don't seem to, at any point, apart from, as Rob says, maybe that summer of 2016 when they maybe let the money go to the head a little bit. Was Adrian Silva that summer as well?
No, he came later on. That was Ahmed
That
Musa,
was the best one.
Mendy and Slimani. Yeah, Adrian Silva, the 14th second after the deadline. Well,
yeah, just we're going to spend 30 million quid, but just too late.
Yes. But that was all because of the Danny Drinkwater sale. Because that came very late in that window as well, the Danny Drinkwater to Chelsea.
Rob
they've done what they were always going to do. To have that presence of mind, that consistency is really impressive.
Chris.
Yeah, and it's been as well. It's been consistent with different personnel, different heads of recruitment. I mean, Steve Walsh left in 2016 to go to Everton, and that was when, because he was advising against signing Slimani, and then they went ahead and signed him after he left. But then they had Eduardo Macia come in. Now they've got Lee Congerton, and it just seems to still be the same philosophy.
That was going to be my question, because it has changed. I know Lee Congerton, who's at Celtic, has gone down to Leicester now. But is the key in all this, Rob, the manager, in terms of, I mean, other than Johnny Evans, and he was a different signing, in my opinion, because he was the finished article. But all the, you look at Fofana, you look at Maddison when Leicester signed him, Castagna, James Justin, who's been phenomenal. But the key is the coach, isn't it? And the fact that he is capable of taking them to the next level. Absolutely.
Brendan's done a wonderful job since he's come in, and he is the perfect coach for that, developing young talent. I mean, we look at Kelechi Iheanacho now, the transformation in him in recent weeks, and that's because Brendan puts his arm around him. He's a confidence. I know all players are confidence players, but Kelechi more so than most, I believe, because when his head's down, he doesn't look anything like a £25 million striker. But when his spirits are up, suddenly you think he's a bargain at £25 million. And I think Brendan deserves a lot of credit. I mean, because they've been consistently competing at the top there, and they've been getting the best out of these young talents that the club have been bringing in.
Despite the top man in the recruitment process changing over the last 5 or 6 years, is there a constant within that department, which means they've had the success that they've had, or is it in fact someone above recruitment who gives the department the freedom to do what they've done? I mean, does it come from the owners or chief exec, or I don't know?
There's a philosophy within the club about they know their identity, they know where they're at, they know they can't compete financially with the big boys in the division. They hope to compete with them on the pitch, but certainly financially in the bank balance, they're nowhere near. The global brand is something they're looking to address, really, because that is where they're miles behind the rest of them, and all that history and tradition, they've got a long way to go to catch up. I mean, they haven't won an FA Cup ever before, and that's something they hope to address this season. But that philosophy about shopping in different markets, I mean, the classic example is Riyad Mahrez, when they signed him from the second division of French football, Le Havre, for £450,000. Now, Arsenal were looking at him as well at around the same time. But I seem to recall a quote attributed to Arsene Wenger. He said, well, I'm Arsenal manager. I can't go and spend £450,000 on a player, because the Arsenal fans were going, what are we doing? Where's our ambition? Spending £450,000 on a player. We want to be spending £45 million on a player. So Leicester have always been trying to unearth these gems in areas where their rivals aren't looking at the moment. And you have to say, it's been very effective so far. I mean, Suyunsu is another one that they've signed. They've spent £19 million on him, so there's a little bit more than what they spent on Mahrez. But, he's a talent that they've unearthed, but then developed and given him confidence as well.
Rob, do Leicester need to sell in the summer? No,
they don't at the moment. I know the financial impact of coronavirus has been felt deeply at the club, £67 million loss in the last financial report. But whenever they've sold, it hasn't been for necessity for money. It's been because that player has shown a desire to go. I mean, Riyad Mahrez is probably the most famous one. Danny Drinkwater certainly did. Harry Maguire had his head turned by Man United. And I don't think Leicester are in a position really to stand in players' ways to that extent. But they've only let one major figure go each summer, and they've always reinvested that money. And the Ben Chilwell money was invested quite wisely, I thought, last summer as well, with Castagna and Fofana coming in, because Fofana, at his age, now he's just turned 20, he looks like he's got the world at his feet. He's such a talented individual.
The Fofana thing's really interesting, because obviously in the same summer that Leicester signed him for 30 million, Arsenal signed William Saliba from the same club in the same position.
Yeah.
And Fofana's been one of the best defenders in the league this season, and William Saliba had to go back on loan to Nice, presumably because, I don't know if there was a personal issue there, but presumably does Arteta decided he wasn't ready for the Premier League yet. And that, Rob's completely right, that Leicester are really smart to look in those different markets. But it also suggests that they have the expertise within their recruitment department to look at the same teams as everybody else is looking at. Because ultimately, there's only 20 teams in France. It's not that hard to watch all the games in the French league every weekend if that's your full-time job. But to pick Fofana over Saliba and see that actually maybe he was the more ready prospect suggests that they know exactly what they're doing. And just on the selling thing, it's anathema to fans. But clubs of Leicester's kind of position and status, even as that rises, they have to sell, because if you get a reputation among players that you're going to be obstructive, and that when a Man United or a Barcelona or a Real Madrid comes in for you and you say no, they won't join you. And that's a problem that teams like Tottenham have. That one of the problems with Tottenham is getting out of Tottenham, because maybe there are players out there in the world whose dream is not to spend their entire careers at a team like Spurs. Maybe they want to end up at Barcelona. And if you're presented with a chance to sign for a team that eventually, when the time is right for you and for them, will sell you to Barcelona. It's a bad example, Barcelona are €1 billion in debt, or a team that won't. You're going to sign for the one that will sell you. So it's really important that Leicester have that kind of outlet as well, because to a lot of players, that will not be the ultimate destination.
Micah, you were going to come in.
No, Chris asked the same question that I was going to ask, to be honest. Yeah, great minds think alike. He snuck in before me.
Right. Have you got another one? Or did you only have the one question?
You talk about the sort of market that Leicester go into. What is the key for that market? Because, I know it's down to recruitment, and you've got the great recruitment in that team. But what makes it so different? Because you've got all these players. Because this is not a coincidence that you get all these top players. This is someone doing a great job. So what is the difference in getting these caliber of players that, like the people like Chris has said that, and Rory said that, you can improve as well? It's interesting to know, because I'm an ambassador at Man City, and the way they look at players, they've got a big script, and this player is going to have this, and the other. But they always go high end. I think Rory made the point, or yourself made the point about Arsenal. They can't spend 450 grand on Mahrez, because you think, well, what's this? We need high caliber. But to get a player before he reaches that level, I think that's a real skill.
It absolutely is, and that is the philosophy. They look for talent that not only has the potential to develop as a player, but also as their value grows as well. So that money that you invest in. So Fofana at 30 million, when they sell him, what's he going to be worth? I mean, Harry Maguire signed him 17, 18 million pounds from Hull, sold him 2 years later to Man United for 80 million pounds. That's what they're looking at. They're looking at young players who've got the ability, the potential to develop. And going back to the comparison with the lad that went to Arsenal, Leicester played for Fofana. They've put him in, and they've given him that platform to develop, where Arsenal haven't done. So we don't really know how good he is at the moment in the terms of the Premier League. But we know what Fofana can do, because he's, and it might have been necessity because of the number of injuries they had as soon as he signed, but he's played a lot of football already.
Who within the Premier League are competing in the same market that Leicester are then? Is it Leicester, Everton, Southampton, maybe?
Villa, possibly, the way they've changed. They've got Craig Shakespeare in there now as well. I mean, the likes of Ollie Watkins is the sort of player that Leicester would have looked at. Somebody who's flourishing in the Championship. I mean, that's where they got Maddison from. That's where they got James Justin from. So that sort of same sort of club is where Leicester are in terms of their recruitment.
And when they go in for a player, I mean, I have no idea whether you'll know this, but do they let on that it is them going in for the player at the early stage of negotiations? I can remember years ago when I was doing Serie A, and talking about Udinese, who had an unbelievable transfer policy in the 90s and the 2000s. But I was often told that intermediaries went in on behalf of Udinese and didn't actually let on to the clubs. It was mainly in South America, I think, that they were buying on behalf of Udinese, because then the clubs would suddenly think, oh right, Udinese have seen something here and they're going to get them at a snip, and in a few years' time they're going to flog them for an awful lot of money. I don't know whether that sort of cloak and dagger still happens. Do they always say, well, because everybody now knows how they operate or their success rate?
Well, they do use agents, yes, they certainly do. But I think the profile of the Premier League, even Leicester City are not perceived to be one of the big six. When they come in, suddenly that asking price goes up. And but Fofana's the classic example. They made it known that they were interested in Fofana. That turned his head. It created a situation where Claude Puel at Saint Etienne was left in an impossible situation. The player wanted to go, similar to how Leicester are sometimes. I mean, it is like a food chain, isn't it, really? And they fed on that and got him.
And a final one, I want to jump in because otherwise Chris is going to hammer me for talking about Udinese, because I can see him. I can see him waiting to take the mick over something I've said. Just a final one on this. Somebody big leaving each summer, a big player leaving each summer. If they lost Rodgers, would they have a similar plan? Do they have the similar recruitment plan in place for coaches and managers as they have for players?
Yes, they do, really. I mean, they've got an identity in terms of how they play. Now, I know Claude Puel's style of football was very slow, but a lot of the way he spoke was similar to Rodgers, but Rodgers has just got that profile, and he's just more inspiring than Claude. I mean, Claude brought a lot of the youngsters through. He brought Harvey Barnes through. He gave Ben Chilwell a good run in the side. I mean, Claude gets a bad rap at Leicester City, but he did bring a lot of the youngsters through, and then Brenda's come in, picked up the baton really from Claude and taken it to another level really. But they would be looking at somebody similar who's going to play a similar style of football, more importantly give the youth a chance.
Rob, can I just ask Mark quickly, do Leicester, you mentioned they're not one of the big six, do Leicester want to be one of the big six, and is there any desire to be known as the finished article club rather than the development club? Which seems to be sort of slightly unfair on Leicester for the way they've performed over a number of seasons now, doesn't it?
Well, I've been covering Leicester City for 11 years, and the transformation of that club has been extraordinary. It's always a work in progress, admittedly, but they've come such a long, long way. And I've argued that, it might not be a big six anymore. It might be a big seven soon if they keep going the way they are. But they've got aspirations. They know where they've got to improve. They've got to improve financially off the field and generate more income, but the way they're going about it suits them. It suits their identity. So to answer your question, Chris, I don't think they really do want to be one of those big six. They're quite happy being Leicester City. In fact, they probably won't be too happy about me being on your show talking about them, because they like to be under the radar. They don't like people writing about them and talking about them because
honestly, Rob, don't worry about it. This show's massively under the radar. I really, you're fine. Nobody will pick this up. Thank you for coming on. Thank you. Cheers, Rob. Rob Tanner from The Athletic, who covers Leicester for them. So just let me get this straight, Micah. As a Manchester City ambassador, you're able to go into the recruitment war room, are you?
Don't worry. Jolie, my friend, is a lone scout, so I know exactly. Jolie Lescott is a lone scout, so I know exactly how everything works. Because I knew you'd try to ask me about this. So yes, I do know how it works. Actually, the dictator.
Well, yes, I wasn't going to bring it up, but you brought it up yourself. So I was just questioning you about it.
Yeah, I just I don't get all the sort of. I don't want to say too much. I'll get in trouble, to be honest. But
dear.
No. In terms of that, have a plan and a structure in place, and they go through different attributes of a player and that sort of thing, and then it'll get dwindled down to, I don't know, 5 players or whatnot, and then they have to go through a procedure. And I think I've mentioned this before on Monday Night Club, to can they fit the Man City bill. So I was interested to know with Leicester, what is their criteria, because to get all these players, it's not normal. That is not normal. That is great work from the recruitment, and it would be nice, not just Man City, but the big six would get some of these top young players who they can develop and turn into superstars instead of always having to spend 50 million plus.
But the problem, and it's interesting that Mark brings up Udinese, because Udinese for a long time kind of summed up the role of that kind of club along with like Porto and Lyon. For about 15, 20 years, those three clubs had an insane record at finding players, and every summer there'd be another incredible superstar kid that came out of Lyon, a Brazilian that they'd found, or they'd signed Juninho Pernambucano, who had solved free kicks and scored every free kick he ever took. And you kind of think that this guy's got a cheat code. And those three clubs were able to do that because they're mid-market clubs. The problem, and Rob kind of alluded to it, if you're one of the sort of 8 or 9 apex teams in Europe, you can't take those risks. So you will pay a premium. We've talked about this before. You will pay a premium for proven talent, and that's the function of like the pyramid of the market. There have to be teams in the middle who can take the risks. And look, Leicester, they at the moment, the last 5-6 years, they're getting far more right than they're getting wrong. The risk is, and it happens to pretty much everybody. At some point that ratio flips, and the battle for all those clubs is to make sure that you stave that point off for as long as possible, and you continue getting as many right as you can. And Leicester are right in the middle of that golden period, and they're doing fantastic work, but you can't be a big club and do that. It just doesn't. It isn't. You need the proven talent. And
you are right, you can't pull off transfer coups forever. So if we just move on to who...